Well, good morning. I'm Kotz. I'm one of the pastors here. We are in part 2 of a series called Vintage. We're going to be doing a little interesting thing. We've never done this at Westside before, but we have a lot of smart people here, a lot of people with insight, and I just try my best to keep up with them. But we had this idea of, hey, let's talk about John 15. The first part of John 15 is Jesus' teaching about the vine and the branches. You guys are probably familiar with that. If not, by the end of the series, you'll be very familiar with it. And we thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we asked some people to talk about what they think about this verse, like what comes out to you? So today is my part. I get to talk about John 15, 1 through 17, and hopefully you guys like it. Next week, we have Pastor Stan sharing again, but he's bringing a special guest. One of our college students is going to share a few words about John 15. I'm really stoked about that. And then I think in a future week, we're going to have... I don't know if you guys remember Pastor Ronnie. Yeah? All right, Ricky, you remember her? Good. Okay, well, she's going to come and share. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of people sharing about the same verse. So, this is good. I'm really excited about this because I like it when I hear how God is speaking about the same verse from different perspectives. I just love that stuff. All right. So John 15, 1 through 17. Before we get into talking about this teaching, I want to give you some historical background. Now, in the ancient Jewish culture, wine was a very, very important part of it. Like they would use it for several things. Like they would use it to, it was used as medicine back then. It was used as a way of celebrating back then. So I want to start off by talking about wine. Here's a little wine thing that I drew. It's like almost overflowing. This is a choice beverage of celebrations back then. So a lot of people use wine as a way, if you would bring it out for weddings, you'll bring it out for like a promotion, you'll bring it out for like an abundance of food, they'll be like, this is great. So what they did was they said, we need to make sure that wine, whenever people hear the word wine, it always represents abundance and blessings. Abundance and blessings. And the reason for this is because when you want to make wine, there's several steps in the process that you really don't have any control over, right? So in order to have wine, there's a farmer, there's a gardener who has to plant the seed, and then the soil has to be fertile. Now, today we have ways of doing that, like chemically, and we have the science. But back then it was like, I think it's fertile, let's plant the seed, and then you have to have the right amount of sunlight, you have to have the right amount of water. So if it rains too much, it'll just wash the seed away. If it doesn't rain enough, if there's a drought, it won't grow at all, right? And it has to be a year where there's no major diseases. You have to make sure that it's protected from outside elements. So it took a lot to make sure you got wine. Wine is something that requires... Here's another thing that's interesting, because what I just explained right now could be about food in general, right? Like, yes, you need water, you need sunlight, you need good soil for like a banana. Well, I don't think they had bananas back then at that part of the world. But, right? It could be anything. But what makes wine so special? Wine is special because wine is one of those foods, one of those drinks that you don't need to survive. It is something that you would have only if you have an abundance of something. So this is why wine in the ancient Jewish world came to represent abundance and blessings. Abundance and blessings. Now, where does wine come from? Now, if you guys know, I think most of us know, that wine comes from grapes, right? Grapes. Thank you. Yes. You woke up early this morning to see this grape. Okay. And where do grapes come from? Grapes come from vines. Okay? Again, thank you. Now, so the ancient Jewish people looked at this and said, if wine is a sign of blessing, then what does the vine represent? If abundance and blessings is what God wants to do for the world, if God wants to bring goodness into the world, right? Then where does that goodness from God come from? And they thought, wait a minute, for years now, God has been saying that he wants to use us as the people who bring the blessings to the world. So, early on in Jewish culture, they started saying that the vine represents the people of God. There it is, God's people, right? And so for that reason, there's all these ancient biblical writers. They used to write poetry called the Book of Psalms. You can read it there. Okay, and these ancient poems, they would use wine as a sign of blessings, like there's a symbol, but they will also use vine as a way to describe themselves. Like we are the vine because we are the ones that are supposed to, it's God who's giving us the blessings, but we are the ones that are supposed to go into the world and bless everybody else. So this is why they use these images, right? There's like a story behind every symbol people use. I'm going to give you an example of one of the Psalms, one of these poems that people wrote back then and sang that shows that they see themselves as the vine. So here's Psalm 80. Here we go. You, God, transplanted a vine from Egypt. Now, if you know Jewish history, these people, these Jews, they were slaves in Egypt. So he's like, God, you're the one that pulled us, uprooted us from Egypt because we were treated slaves. You drove out the nations and planted it. You cleared the ground for it, and it took root and filled the land. It's like you took us out of Egypt, and then you cleared the land, and you planted us in this place, Canaan, okay? And so now we have a new headquarters. We have a new land, and God, the great gardener, he is the one that did this for us, okay? So he continues. The mountains were covered with its shade. Do you see this image of blessing? Like the hot areas on top of the mountain. Well, we are the vine that's supposed to give shade to those hot areas, which would be nice right now. The mighty cedars with its branches. Its branches reach as far as the sea. It shoots as far as the river. Like we are the one. God planted us in Israel so that we could be primed to bring blessings to the world. That's the image that's being taught here, okay? Now, this is the part of the psalm where the happy song kind of goes into a minor key. It's like all of a sudden, like this is the part where they start complaining to God. And then he says this, so why, God, have you broken down its walls so that all who pass by picks its grapes? Right? Like you used to take care of us so well, but now people walk by and they vandalize us. They take the grapes and they take it for themselves. Boars from the forest ravage it, and insects from the fields feed on it. It's like, what's the deal, God? You did all these things for us, and now people are just destroying us. I mean, as people of God, have you guys ever felt like God has kind of turned his back on you? This is what this psalm is about. So they're begging, like, return to us, please. Come back to the way that you used to take care of us. We miss those good old days. Return to us, God Almighty. Look down from heaven and see. Watch over this vine, the root your right hand has planted, the son you have raised up for yourself. Like you used to treat us like your own child, and now we feel neglected. I mean, it seems, from their perspective, it seems like God stopped caring about us. It seems like you've gone kind of careless, God. What's the deal with this? I mean, right now we're like a free-for-all for all the ravagers. Can you please care for us again? He continues, your vine is cut down. It is burned with fire. At your rebuke, your people perish. Let your hand rest on the man at your right hand, the Son of Man you have raised up for yourself. Like, please treat us like the child that you used to treat us like. Please, we miss those days. Now, there's one more verse in this one. I'm not going to get to it yet. Because so far, if you just read up to here, it sounds like, man, God has totally lost the ball here. Like he's not doing what he's supposed to do. I mean, God, you have this job and you're not fulfilling it, right? Why would God turn his back on us? Now, the last verse of this poem gives you an insight as to why. And it turns out it's not God's fault. You probably should know that by now, right? Because in the last line, the poet reveals their attitude about this whole thing. He says, if you do all this, then, only then, we will not turn away from you. Revive us and we will call on your name. This is what he's saying. So God, if you treat us well, if you give us all the goods, if you treat us the way that you used to, then we'll let you be in a relationship with us. Now, if you know Jewish history, you'll know that all the things that they listed, they pretty much brought upon themselves, right? And now they have the audacity to point to God and say, look at what you've done to us. Now, if you were to restore the greatness that we used to have, then we will allow you to have a relationship with us. Like this last verse right here reveals what the issue is, right? So like, we'll let you be, we'll let you care for us again. We'll let you protect us again. We'll let you rescue us again. And then we'll sing songs about you. So please, right? So in this psalm alone, it reveals two things. Number one, and then in the Bible, the vine represents the people of God that were supposed to dispense blessing to the world, right? They are the vine, and they're supposed to be the people who are supposed to pour out the blessings to all the parts of the world. That was their job. And the second thing we learn about through this poem is that they failed to do that. they didn't do a good job of it. They did not produce fruit. This vine had one job and they didn't do it. People were hungry and they did not feed them. There were people who were in need and they didn't try to meet those needs for them. People were outcasted and they didn't include them. There were people who had no hope and they did not connect them to God's hope. So about 700 years after this is written, a guy named Jesus shows up on the scene. And he has a crowd of people, a lot of the people who are the people that's mentioned in here, right? These are the Jewish people. They're sitting in front of him, and some of them are his disciples. And Jesus stands up and he teaches them this. He says, I'm going to teach you something that's going to blow your mind. And he goes to John 15. He says this, I am the true vine. I know in the Old Testament you thought you were the vine. Well, guess what? I am the true vine. I'm the real deal here. Okay, I know like for hundreds, thousands of years you thought you were the real deal. I'm here to tell you I am the real deal. I'm the one that's supposed to dispense blessings into the world. And he says, and my Father is the gardener. The same Father that said that you are the vine and gave you the job to bless the world, that's my Father also, and he said that I am now the true vine. I will show you how it's supposed to be done. Okay, so Jesus is changing the game here. Okay, he's like, I am the one that's going to bless the world. And then he continues and says this, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. And by saying this, he's basically pointing his finger at the people of the Old Testament, right? He's saying like, all these people, they're supposed to bear fruit, but they weren't doing it, right? So that's why I'm the new vine. Okay, and because of that, you guys are kind of like branches. You're connected to me, but you guys weren't bearing fruit. So I need to make some changes, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm changing the whole thing here. And he says, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be more fruitful. And sometimes for people who are bearing fruit, sometimes you feel like God is hurting you. And he's like, no. Well, the gardener is actually pruning you so you could bear more fruit. And it's like you already, this is like a random line, but I'll explain to you why it's not random. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Now, you're like, we're talking about agriculture, and all of a sudden you're talking about being clean. Like, what's the deal here? The word clean and the word prunes, in the original language, it rhymes. So this is like a dad joke he's doing here. That's why he brought it up. What he's saying is this, sometimes my words that I speak to you hurts. But keep in mind, when it hurts, it's me pruning you. I'm trying to make it so you can bear more fruit. And because of the words I've spoken to you, you are now able to bear even more fruit. Okay, that's what he's saying here. And then he gets to the core of it. It's like, guys, I want you to understand that this is not just about bearing fruit. This is actually about relationship. And he goes into the next part. Remain in me. And this word right here is a relational word. It's like, remain in me. Have a relationship with me. And I also remain in you. If you want to have a relationship with me, I will have a relationship with you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Again, a relational word. It's weird to think that a vine could have a relationship with a branch, right? But he's like, this is all about relationships. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. So, from reading this, it sounds like this God that Jesus is representing, it sounds like he's saying, guys, fruit is very important to me. I mean, do you get the sense that fruit is very important to Jesus? And he's saying, in order to bear fruit, you need something like you need to be plugged in. You have to be connected. There has to be some type of relationship between you and God. Okay? So here's like an illustrated version of what Jesus is trying to teach here. He's saying this: up until now, you believe that you were the vine. God's people were the vine. Here's the big change we're about to change in paradigm. Next slide. Jesus is now the vine, to which the people of God are like, but then what are we? What are we? It's like, oh, wait, you're still part of this diagram. Next slide. He says, oh, you're here. That's you. You're the branch that's connected to the vine. It's like, whoa. God, is this a demotion? It's like, oh, well, I know it feels like a demotion. It feels like they're bringing you down a notch. Let me just be clear what's going on here. I am the one that is going to bring blessing to the world. Okay, you thought that was you, but it's actually through me. Excuse me, my voice is starting to get parched. Okay. He says, I am still the one that's going to give the blessings, but the fruit, next slide, comes from the branch. It is still your responsibility to bear fruit. In a way, this is a partnership. And this partnership can only work one way. It's only if the branch and the vine work together. There has to be a relationship. You guys have to plug in. And so the disciples and the people who are listening to Jesus are like, wait a minute, this is new. I don't know how to process this. So Jesus is like, okay, let me repeat the part that's very important. So next verse, he says this, I am, again, the vine. Now you are the branches. Let's get that clear. It's like, you're not the whole thing. I am the main thing, and you are an offshoot of me, right? It's like, I'm still the dispenser of blessings. You are the ones that are bearing the fruit. This is a partnership. We have to work together. And then he continues. If you remain in me, and I in you, if we have that relationship, mutual relationship, you will bear much fruit. You will be able to bless the world. And apart from me, you can do nothing. So this is, if you could think in terms of word diagrams, this is what he's saying. He's doing a parallel here. As a branch needs to connect to the vine, and that's how it bears fruit, in the same way, when it comes to people, we have to be connected to Jesus in order for us to bless the world. Oh, thank you so much, Alan. Thank you. Thank you for the offering. Thank you. I should have done this before. Okay. All right. So relationship. The word remain, he's saying, in the same way that these two things have to be in a relationship in order to produce the fruit, he says this relationship has to exist in order for you to bless the world. Because this is what they missed in the Old Testament. So the question that you might have next is, so how do I remain? Like, how do I connect? So Jesus is like, I'm glad you asked. Because that's the whole next section, like from verse 9, that's what we're going to talk about. He says this, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you, and now I want you to remain in my love. He's talking about this chain. He's like, the same way that this relates, this needs to relate in the same way, okay? And then he says something that is like almost like off-putting, because you're like, okay, I could get on board with this relationship thing because, I'm a very emotional person, or, I love relationships. I love feeling connected. I don't feel, like I thought, Christianity was all about just following rules, and then God would be like, do this. And I'm like, yes, master. And right, like I love this version of Christianity. Until the next verse, because this is this. If you keep my commands, to which you're like, whoa, Kotz, you got me, like when I was younger, I used to go to church and I thought it was all a bunch of do's and don'ts. Now you're telling me there are do's and don'ts? Yes, but we'll talk about that in a second. It's like, if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. Now, this could be a little confusing for some of you, because all your life in church, you thought that Christianity was about this unconditional love by God. But here, doesn't it seem like he's saying, if you keep my commands, then you'll have this relationship? That doesn't sound that unconditional to me, you might be thinking. I don't know if you ever thought that. Right? Doesn't it sound like Jesus is saying, like, if you do this, then we'll have the relationship? But I thought God loved us no matter what. There's a little tension here, and I love tension. So here, Jesus is like, I know this might cause some tension for you guys, so let me just be clear. When I said command, I was thinking about a very specific command. Well, what is that command? Verse 12, my command is this. He's like, here it is. What is this command that we have to follow, and if we don't follow, then we're not in a relationship with you? What is this command that you're talking about, Jesus? He says this, love each other. And so disciples are like, what is this command? Oh, I don't have to write that down. I knew that. I read the Bible. That's what I read this, right? But he's like, no, you don't understand, disciples. This loving command is a very specific type of love. I'm very particular about the way that you're supposed to show your love. If you want to know what that love looks like, he says, love each other as I have loved you. How has God loved you? Now, at this point in the story, the disciples are like, well, you took care of us, we walked with you, you taught us a few things. But Jesus is not just talking about that, because just in a few days after this teaching, Jesus is going to be arrested, and he's going to be taken away, and he's going to die on the cross. And he's not doing it because he gets overtaken by evil, overtaken by the Roman Empire or by the Jewish people who don't like him. He's going to the cross voluntarily. He's laying his life down for the people he loves. Like, if you want to know what this love looks like, he says, let me give you a foreshadow. Let me give you a little preview in the very next verse. He says, greater love has no one than this. Like, you want to know what this love looks like? This is what it looks like. That you will lay down one's life for one's friends. He's talking about himself. He's saying, do you know what kind of love? This is a command, the one command I want you to get right. I want you to love the people around you in the way that God has loved you. He says this is so critical. If you get this one thing right, you get all of Christianity right. To love others as Jesus has loved you. So how has God loved you? I'm sure you guys have these stories, these testimonies of times when you thought you were unlovable and God still showed up and said, I love you just as you are. I'm sure you could think of stories and tell stories about the times when you had no hope and God gave you hope. When you thought you were unlovable and God said that I love you anyways. This is exactly what was going through the minds of the people here hearing Jesus' teaching here. They're like, how has Jesus loved? Oh, yeah, he loved me this way, that way, this way, that way. And then a few days later, and he died and he suffered and he put himself ahead of me. That's how he has loved me. And then he says something interesting, because when you think about commands, when Jesus says, I want you to follow this command, when you give somebody a command, it's usually like a master or servant, a master, a slave type of relationship. And Jesus says this, no, I'm going to call you friends. You are my friends. And then he says, but that's if you do what I command. Like, wait. So are you my friend or are you my master? I mean, that is so confusing. Like, what is Jesus doing here? Like, which one are we? Are you both? Like, are you a master that's all my? Like, can you be best friends with your boss? Like, I don't know. Does that work? I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a boss anymore. So, but he is not like a command implies that you are being forced to do something. And what Jesus is going to say right now is he's about to say this, and we're going to read it together. He's about to say this. My command to you is to love others in the way that Christ has loved you. But that's if you want to do it. It's like, that's a weird kind of master-servant relationship. So you're calling us friends now, right? I know it's confusing. This is what he says next. I no longer call you servants, right? Because if I did call you servants, I would just tell you what to do and you have to do it. But it's like, but I'm not going to call you that anymore. Why? Because a servant does not know his master's business. He says, if you listen to my teaching that I just taught right now, you'll find out that I just gave you the blueprints of what I'm about to do in the next few days. That I'm going to lay my life down to bring blessings upon the world. You know what a servant usually hears? Just what to do. You know what a friend hears? What I want you to do if you can. And here's the reason why. A master would never lay his life down for a servant. So he's like, if you were to look at servant and friend, like, I think you should call me friend, because that's what I'm doing right now. He just knows nothing about the master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have just right now, through my teaching, made known to you. Like everything that you've heard about me sounds like it's a master servant type of relationship, but that everything that you have seen me do implies that I'm your friend. Because this is a relationship. So let's look at the diagram right now. So the disciples are thinking, like, what did the master just teach us? What did our friend just teach us? He just taught us that he is the new vine and that we are the branches and we're still responsible for bearing fruit. Okay, so what, so Jesus just revealed to us what he's about to do. So what is it? And then they look at this and they're like, oh, I get it. Well, what do you get? Okay, in order to create wine, you need grapes. But does grape magically turn into wine? No, because you have to crush grapes in order to create wine. And so disciples at this point, if you're very intuitive and you're listening to Jesus, you're like, oh my gosh, he just revealed to us exactly what's about to happen to him. Next slide. He's about to suffer. He's going to be crushed so that he could go and bless the world. He just revealed to us his game plan. A master never does that. He is our friend. He believes in us. Because in the next few days, he's going to be crucified. He's going to bleed. And through his blood, he's going to save the world. So, next slide. This is Jesus' plan. Bless humanity through his own suffering. The disciples are like, wow. Is that what you're going to do for us, Jesus? You're going to bless us through your death? Now, when he says, I want you to love on the people around you in the way that Christ has loved us, the disciples also realize, you're telling me that this is what I'm supposed to do for my friends? That we're not supposed to lord over other people like a master and servant, but to be their friends? And then he says this, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit. The disciples are thinking, remember that day that God chose us? Remember that day that I was a fisherman, Peter would say, and I went out and cast a net and I was trying to bring in fish, but I caught nothing? When I was a failure at my own job, he asked me to follow him. He chose me. He chose me at my worst. Matthew's like, the day that he chose me, I was a tax collector. I was stealing money from my friends and people didn't want to be around me anymore. But he chose me. And now he's asking us to go and bear fruit for the world. I used to be the one that was taking blessings from people, and now I'm the one that's dispensing blessings. Wow. What a difference 3 years makes. And so they're starting to get emotional, right? They're like, when Jesus picked me up, I was unlovable. And now look at me now. He's using me to bless the world. Will I lay my life down for my friends? These guys are probably thinking, I don't know, I could do it, but that's definitely what I want to do. You see, this command is not, do this because I told you so. It's, I'm going to show you what love looks like, and when you're ready, I want you to show that same love to the people around you. That's his command. And so he says at the very end, there's one more verse in this, he says, let me remind you the most important part of what I just taught you. And he repeats this. This is my command. Love each other. He's like, I told you everything because I'm your friend. I'm about to lay my life down for you. I'm like that grape that's getting crushed so that you could be blessed. Now I want you to go and love others in the way that I have loved you. This is a very deep teaching that Jesus is just a few days away from the end of his earthly life, and he's like, I want to spend this time giving you hints, giving you information, giving you motivation to do what it takes to continue this movement that I just started. So the key to blessing the world, because God's people of the Old Testament messed up on this one, right? He's like, this time we're not going to mess up. Here's the key. The key is this: love others. But Jesus, how do we love others? Well, you've seen it demonstrated because I've loved you, right? So I want you to love others as Christ has loved us. This is the key to bringing blessing into the world. In church history, there is a guy named Saint Augustine. It's not Augustine. I've been saying it wrong for so long. It's Augustine. Saint Augustine. And his disciple, this is a few hundred years later, was asking, hey, Saint Augustine, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like, I don't know. Like, I've grown up in the church. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with my life. Am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? Just tell me what to do, since I feel like you're close to God. You'll speak on behalf of God. Just tell me what I'm supposed to do. And St. Augustine thought about it for a second. And he looked at him, and this is a famous quote. He says this: love and do what thou wilt. If you can love other people in the way that Christ has loved you, after that, you could do whatever you want. Maybe you like to bake. That's great. But if you could love people in the way that Christ has loved you, then your baking business or your hobby or whatever it is will be a part of loving the people around you. If you're the baker and God says, I want you to love others in the same way that God has loved you, then the baking becomes a part of the way that you love people, right? If you are a writer, right? Or if you are a songwriter, if you like to sing songs, if your North Star is to love others in the way that Christ has loved you, your music, your writing, your articles, your journals, your everything, your fiction writing, your movie writing, whatever it is, it will follow. It will be a part of how you're going to love and bless the world. And this is what St. Augustine was saying. He's saying, if you could just love in the way that Christ has loved you, if that's your North Star, if that's the core of what you are as a Christian, then everything else will follow. And I believe this is what Jesus was saying through John 15. He's saying, if you can allow me, Jesus would say, if you could allow me to be the vine and you are the branch, you are still bearing fruit, but I'm the dispenser of that blessing. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to love people selflessly. Then you will bear fruit in ways that you could never imagine. Amen? All right, let's pray.